I got like some tweets asking me about this. And like one of them was worded this way, which is basically, hey, I think, the Lions and obviously the Lions and the Ravens could wind up playing each other in the Super Bowl. Could the Commanders wait and see who wins the matchup between Ben Johnson and Mike Macdonald to and then pick the winner as their head coach? And I was just like, what? Let me not be dismissive. Let me not be pejorative. Let me not be a jerk. I understand the question. It's not like I don't get it, right? Oh, well, hey, we got candidate A, we got candidate B. What if they could fight and the winner's the one that we choose? Voila. Like, yeah, of course that makes logical sense. But the problem is the fight isn't over. Like, it's not a fight. We're not picking our fighter to go pick to then have the same fight. You're asking people to do the jobs they have now with the pieces they have around them now, and then ultimately use that information to predict if they'll be good at another job with almost none of those people moving forward. So seeing if Mike Macdonald could shut down Ben Johnson, to frame it even as if that framing is even accurate, is not actually that helpful of a piece of information. I want to know how they'd be as a head coach. How you do as a coordinator is important. It's really important, especially if you're going to be the coordinator. But how you do in terms of wins and losses is obviously very dependent on the players and the organization that you have. And a guy like Sean McVay has done just fine, even though he never got to an NFC championship game and never won a playoff game as a coordinator here in Washington. In fact, his last game with Washington was terrible. 2016 versus the Giants, week 17. It's one of the worst 5 games that Kirk Cousins had as a commander or as a Washington football player. And Sean coordinated that game. And then a week later, the Rams hired him. And I think they're pretty happy. And it wasn't that whoever the DC in New York was that day was like a better head coaching candidate and would have actually won 3 Super Bowls in the time that Sean has won 1 with the Rams. It's that they're different jobs. And I think that there is this obsession with the results right now because it's the only new information available compared to what we've seen them do over time and the piece of information that we don't have. Because again, you want to judge the 20 they went head to head. Because you want to know who's the DC of 2016 New York Giants? It was Steve Spagnuolo, who's an incredible defensive coordinator. Maybe on the all-timers list for great coordinator, not very good head coach. Spags has been killing it in Kansas City. But as a head coach, didn't really work out. What was it? New York and St. Louis. Yeah, back with the Rams, 2009, 2011. I think he just kind of figured out, like, this ain't really for me. Went on to be the defensive coordinator in New Orleans, worked in Baltimore, went back to the Giants, and then has been in Kansas City since 2019. And I don't know that he's ever going to get a head coaching call again, which seems a little crazy based off how well they've done this year. But I don't think I don't think anyone looks back at that 2016 matchup and goes, Spags should have been the guy over McVay. They're different jobs. And to go back again to I think the thing that we as fans and media need to remember if we want to be intelligent about this stuff. Want to just yell and have fun with it, then they're like, okay, But these interviews matter because they go into them, Josh Harris and everybody goes into them with a series of questions that really lay out, like, what's your vision going to be a head coach? Like, what's your staff going to look like? That's one of the most important questions. What's your staff going to look like? What is your kind of philosophy on drafting? Like, hey, this number 2 pick, what would you want to do with it? Do you have any thoughts? And if they're like, I want to take this guy, then Adam Peters is probably going to be like, all right, we're next. If he's like, I got to look at the prospects, or, I think it's really important that we heavily consider this thing because XYZ, like, they might have thoughts on that. They might have thoughts, obviously, on building a roster and, hey, how comfortable are you working with an analytics department? How much experience do you have? What kind of numbers and data would you want us to be gathering for you? If we hand you this data set, what do you make of it? What do you think about the current roster here in Washington? Like, all of these questions and so many more are on the table and are way more important in terms of how they answer them, because ultimately that's how they're going to act once they're in charge. All of that is way more important than who wins a game in the playoffs. Yes, McDonald over Slowick when it's Ravens versus Texans. But does that automatically mean that McDonald's the better head coaching candidate? No, it doesn't. So let's just collectively agree to stop doing that. They're important data points. And not saying anyone who's doing well right now is actually a bad candidate. I'm not saying anyone, I just think that we need to be smarter about trying to simplify everything down to one game or one playoffs. If the Ravens win the Super Bowl, it doesn't mean Mike McDonald's the greatest head coaching candidate in the history of everything. Belichick has won 6 Super Bowls, and 0 of his assistants have ever sniffed a Super Bowl as a head coach. They're different jobs. And that is imperative to keep in mind. And I hope that if there are leaks, and it certainly seems like there are not a lot of leaks from the Washington side of things, that the leaks, and ultimately when we hear them on record in a press conference introducing the guy, the reasons why they hire the next head coach are not did really well in the playoffs. It's is a great leader that we're confident has a plan to help rebuild our football team to go where he just came from, which is the playoffs.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.